Hi, this is Tony English from English Realty. You know, I tend to be kind of a Bitcoin nerd, and my friends and family and clients have been asking me about Bitcoin because I talk about it a lot. And today I was walking around the park, this beautiful day, and I ran across my friend Rocky. And he doesn't know anything about Bitcoin, but he asked me some very intelligent questions. So I'm inviting you to come join me in this conversation.
So Tony, I wanted to ask you, what is Bitcoin?
Yeah, it's a hard thing to explain because it's so simple, but it's a little bit technical too. Bitcoin is just a simple ledger. You have an encrypted input into the ledger, and it stays on the computers that are running the mining. The mining of the Bitcoin is on millions of computers, which does take electricity. It's actually an energy in project. But Bitcoin is just a ledger, plus minus ledger, and it's always on there into eternity. It's non-physical. It is a record of value, and it's a store of value. And so it just keeps going and going, and it keeps growing. The more people who buy it, the price goes up. It's very simple, but the encryption is very, very intense. Like, you cannot, when the ledger on the computer, it keeps it hidden on the encryption. So there's no way to break into it or to get to it. It's just on the internet, wild, and it can't be stopped.
Is Bitcoin an actual physical coin?
No, it's not a physical coin. Bitcoin is a digital currency. It's on the internet. It's an encrypted currency that you transfer from one person to another. Unlike in other things on the internet that you send a copy of it, when you send a Bitcoin through the internet, it's actually goes from one place to the other, and the other person loses custody of it. So that's what's unique about it.
Yeah, so you're a real estate broker. Should I be buying real estate or should I buy Bitcoin? Which is it?
I believe that real estate is a great investment, and it has utility. You know, you need to live somewhere. You need to have property, and property goes up in value especially when the currencies in all these countries, including the future of the United States, they go down in value. So it takes more and more dollars or yen or pesos to buy a place to live. And it's always good to have that. When economies start to go into hyperinflation, the people who own real estate are protected. So I always say, buy real estate, own real estate. It's a good investment.
Okay.
But real estate has some problems to it. One of the problems is it can be regulated. You have to pay taxes on it. It can be taken from you by the government through eminent domain. It's hard to move. You have to pay someone to sell it, pay someone to buy it. And it's a form of value, and it is a good investment. So for my clients, I always tell them, make sure you own real estate, whether it's one or two properties, whatever. But in this new upcoming age, I'm recommending all my clients buy Bitcoin because the future of Bitcoin is just going to be up and up and up. And it's a way to store your value without losing it to inflation.
I keep my money buried in a box over there. I mean, not over there. I don't put it over there. I have it over there. But I've heard these things called banks that you guys use. Should I consider? Why don't I just keep my money in the bank?
Great question. What happens with money in the bank? It actually goes down in value. So the money that we have in the bank is called fiat, which means it's not tied to anything. It's just paper money. And so what happens with governments? They all have these well-intentioned goals to help themselves and others, and they just completely just keep printing money. And whenever there's a crisis, a war, a pandemic, they print more and more money. And so what happens is supply and demand. When you print more money, the value of the money goes down. Back in 1971, we used to be on the gold standard, and that kept the money valuable until France and England wanted their gold. And President Nixon didn't want to give it to them, so he took it off the gold standard. And so now money floats along. Now the dollar has been strong in the world because it's become the world reserve currency. You know, most of the oil and all the big international transactions are done through the dollar. But that's changing. China, Russia, a lot of the other countries are trying to get off the dollar, and they're going to be successful. They're actually coming out with their own crypto digital currency that they're going to start pretty soon. When that happens, the support for the dollar is going to crash. So I'm telling everybody I love and care about to jump onto this new future currency, store of value asset called Bitcoin.
Isn't Bitcoin just a, what do they call that, a Ponzi scheme, you know, like Bernie Madoff or something? Isn't that what that is?
No, it's the opposite of a Ponzi scheme. What happens with Bitcoin, it was set up to grow, but only to 21 million coins. And right now we're almost there. And every 4 years, the people who produce the Bitcoin, they're called miners, and that they keep the ledger going. And so what happens is they get paid Bitcoin for doing that. So there's millions and millions of computers running Bitcoin, and it's decentralized. So there's nobody in charge. There's no government, there's no company, there's no person. It's all wild on the internet. And so the miners are on there keeping the ledger in place. And so what happens is every 4 years, like right now, there's 900 Bitcoin produced every day. In April, it's cutting down to 450. 4 years later, it'll be down to 225. 4 years later, half and half. And so it becomes more and more rare. On a Ponzi scheme, the top people make money and the people on the bottom, and it expands until it crashes. This is the opposite. It's getting more and more rare, so supply and demand issues kick in. It becomes more and more valuable. You know, when people started doing Bitcoin in the beginning, there was some fear and trepidation about it because maybe it'll crash or maybe it'll be hacked or something will happen wrong, so people were a little bit afraid of it. But now it's gone up the curve. As of today, it's $52,500 a Bitcoin. And it's going to keep going because the supply and demand. Now all the big companies are getting into it. BlackRock, Fidelity, Grayscale, they're all buying billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin every day. Yesterday they bought $2 billion worth of Bitcoin, and now people are investing it in what's called an ETF. So what happens is you don't have to go buy the Bitcoin now, which is a little bit of a learning curve to buy it on the internet. You just put your stocks with any of your stockbrokers, Schwab or whatever, and they'll put money, they'll buy shares in Bitcoin through these ETFs. Exchange traded funds. So you don't even have to buy the Bitcoin, you can invest in it, they buy it for you, they hold it. But I prefer to own it myself. And so when you buy it from exchange, you can put it on a cold wallet and you keep it on your own desk and you can hide it. Nobody can steal it because it's hidden from everybody. And then when you want to sell it, you put it on exchange and you cash it out and now you have money. So it's way different than a Ponzi scheme. It actually is the future. You know, when the internet started, people were kind of skeptical. I remember I started trying to buy stuff on the internet. My friends were saying, I can't believe you're so stupid to put your credit card on the internet. Then, of course, we all know Amazon's one of the biggest companies in the world. They sell 40 to 50% of everything retail right now. This is what's going to happen with Bitcoin. We're on the adoption phase, and it's still a good time to get in. And it's actually never going to be a bad time because it goes up and down right now. When it's new, it goes like kind of volatile. But then in the future, it's going to go up and it's become less and less volatile. It's become more stable. And in the future, everybody who bought Bitcoin now are going to be wealthy.
I heard Bitcoin is more like a use by criminals, like my friend Jimmy over in the other clan. You know, he's kind of a sketchy guy and I heard maybe that he's using Bitcoin. Isn't that what it's for?
Rocky, that's a great question. I hear that a lot. You know, when online videos started, you know who did most of the videos? Porn producers. They were trying to make money on porn, and they were the ones who developed all the technologies for videos online.
Okay.
But now look at it. Everybody has videos now on Instagram and Facebook. Everybody has videos on their phone. And that technology started out with mostly criminals and kind of shady people. At the beginning of Bitcoin, that's what happened. You know, it was a great way to, you know, exchange money without the government knowing it and without people knowing it. And so, but now there's actually less criminals percent. You know, Bitcoin just hit $1 trillion market cap, which means the total value of Bitcoin that people own right now is worth $1 trillion.
Oh.
Very, very small percentage of that is criminals. There's always going to be criminals. But you know what? JP Morgan Chase got fined billions of dollars because they were part of a criminal operation with money, with dollars. So there's way more crime going on with fiat money than is with Bitcoin right now. It's a great question.
Well, if that's all true, then why are people so scared or skeptical of Bitcoin, of using Bitcoin?
People don't understand something. When they don't understand it, they're afraid of it, and they look for reasons to be against it. And they have a very quick thought process, and they don't really research it. They hear one negative thing, and they run with it. You know, it's a lot of fear. And that's true with every new technology. So that fear now is subsiding. It's getting less and less. So what we're going to see is people learning about it, getting into it, and it's going to be really interesting to watch.
I don't think I have enough money buried to buy Bitcoin, can I? I mean, how much money do you need to buy Bitcoin?
Yeah, that's funny. You know, the price of Bitcoin is $52,500. It goes up and down, but you know what? There's something called a Satoshi. You can buy a fraction of a Bitcoin. It's the smallest amount of Bitcoin you can buy is 100 millionth of a coin. So you can buy a very, very small amount of Bitcoin. And so that's what's another great thing about it. You know, if you're going to invest in gold will float with the value. It protects you against inflation.
Oh, okay.
But you can't carry gold across the border. You can't chop it up into little pieces and sell it. But with Bitcoin, it's like a digital gold. And you can buy any, or you can sell any small little sliver of it. And so it's very easy to buy, very easy to transfer. You can transfer it to any part of the world. You can, if they're taxing you too much in one area, you can move to another area. There's even some new countries that are getting smart, and they're letting you become a resident there and not taxing you. So it's got all kinds of opportunities for that. But yeah, you don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. You can buy any sliver. You know, if you buy real estate, you have a big, huge capital investment. There's a minimum amount of money you have to put in to buy real estate, and then wait for it to go up, and then to sell it. But with Bitcoin, you can get in. If you're working at McDonald's or you're a CEO, you can buy a portion of your investment in Bitcoin and benefit just like anybody else. So it's very fair for everybody, every level of society.
Let me understand, is the government okay with you using Bitcoin? Is that okay? Is that legal?
Actually, that's a great question. The government's afraid of Bitcoin, and this is why. Right now, the government has power. They're the ones who issue the money. They control it. They can tax you. They can see where you're spending the money. Everything's monitored through the Federal Reserve and the Treasury. And so what happens is they control you. But with Bitcoin, they have no control. At first, they tried to regulate it, and they couldn't. China at one point said you can't mine Bitcoin, and then everybody kept doing it. So now they're getting back into it. The governments don't like Bitcoin because it takes power from them and gives it to the individual. And so there really is nothing they can do about it. Now, in America, it's kind of ironic. You know, North Korea and Venezuela and different countries have strict restrictions against Bitcoin.
Oh.
And in America, we're actually very strict right now. Like, there's exchanges that you can't exchange unless you're out of the country. The rest of the world is allowing it, and the United States is very strict. But then there's companies here that they allow, like Coinbase and others that they allow, but those have something called Know Your Client. So when you buy Bitcoin on Coinbase, you have to prove who you are. You have to give them your passport or your license, and you have to prove, you know, your identity so that when you sell it, the government can tax you at least. But when you have the Bitcoin, they don't know what you're doing with it. It's on a ledger that's out on all the computers, and it's private, so nobody knows. It's decentralized, meaning nobody has control, and it's also private. Everybody can see the blockchain. They can see where money is being transferred, but they don't know who, by who, or why, or what product, or anything. So the governments hate it, but they're starting to warm up to it. The SEC just approved 11 ETFs, meaning that they're allowing big companies to invest in Bitcoin freely. So they've kind of given up. You know, at first, you start a forest fire, and at the beginning you can put it out by stomping it out. But at some point, it's too big. You can't stop it. And that's what's happened with Bitcoin. It's gone viral. There's no way to stop Bitcoin.
Can Bitcoin be hacked, like computer hackers, you know, like those guys out of Russia? Can't they come in and steal your Bitcoin?
Yeah, Rocky, that's a very intelligent question. Can it be hacked? A lot of people have lost their Bitcoin because they've been foolish with it. They've put it on their computer, and then a hacker comes in and grabs it. But the way Bitcoin works is you have 12 to 24 keywords that, let's say someone steals your computer. If you keep it in either hot or cold storage, it's called, they can't get to the Bitcoin because they need your keywords. So you can either memorize them or hide them somewhere safe. But a lot of people, they go on an exchange like FTX, for instance, famous company that just got crashed and it was illegal. What they did is they had all their money on the exchange. So you're trusting them to hold your Bitcoin for you. Well, Sam Bankman-Fried started spending your Bitcoin wild and crazy and just giving it to politicians to give him power and everything. So if you own Bitcoin, you want to buy it on exchange, but then you want to transfer it to what they call hot or cold storage, where you need the keys, the keywords, to be able to access it. So, and then it is an encrypted, it's very, very high encryption. So right now there's no technology to hack it. So it's unhackable, it's completely safe as long as you know what you're doing with it.
So how would I go about buying some of this thing you call Bitcoin?
Oh, you're going to think about buying some. Okay, good job. What I suggest is that you go to a major exchange like Coinbase. There are smaller ones and they're fine, but sometimes they go out of business, like FTX went out of business. When you go to an exchange, you don't really own the Bitcoin, they're holding it for you. But once you buy Bitcoin, if you have any kind of substantial amount, you should move it to what's called a hot wallet or a cold wallet. The hot wallets are on the exchange, but you have control of them. There's a 24-word keyword that keeps you having control. If they go out of business, they don't take the Bitcoin. You can have it and you can open it up somewhere else. Or you put it on a ledger, a little like USB port that you can transfer it over and nobody can get access to it unless they have your keywords. But you should go to Coinbase, or you can even go to Venmo and you can buy a little bit of Bitcoin on Venmo. Again, you don't own that Bitcoin, they're holding it for you. You own it, but they're holding it for you. So eventually when you get enough, you should transfer it to a hot or a cold wallet.
So if all this is true, then how much do you think Bitcoin will be worth in the future? Because I'm afraid of the future. The future is kind of scary for me.
Oh, okay. So here is where people are going to think I'm crazy.
Okay.
The problem with money is it's going down in value. It's going down like at least 7% per year. So buying Bitcoin is a hedge against the debasement of money. You know, money is not backed by anything. The governments back in 1971, they went off the gold standard, and now money is just floats with what people think it's worth. The problem is, like back in the 1990s, we had about 30% of our GDP was in debt, but now it's at 130%. The government just keeps spending money because every time there's a tragedy, a war, a pandemic, or an issue where they need more money, or they want to get reelected, they promise to do things like pay off student loans, and they just keep pouring money in to get power. One side promises more, the other side promises more, and our debt is just going up and up and up. And they can do that by just issuing bonds and treasuries, and then they issue them, and then they buy them back and put money into the banking system. You know, and the banking system also, you don't have your money. The bank doesn't hold, your money's in the bank, but they lend out like 4 to 5 times that much. So it's like a balloon. But the rest of the world, inflation is going crazy, like in Argentina and Venezuela and other countries, Turkey. They've done this, what we're doing here, but because their money isn't the world reserve currency, their money goes down in value so quick. So people who own real estate and gold and equities, they stay with the value. But if you're renting and you don't own things, you're going to end up being poor, and the rich are going to get richer. So the problem, though, is real estate will basically stay at the same value. Gold will stay at the same value. I mean, it'll cost more dollars to buy it, but you're not really gaining. Oh. And if you have money in the bank, it's just going down in value, and it compounds down because it's 7% one year, 7%, and maybe more, 20%, 15%, 5%. If you own a treasury bond and you're getting 5%, you think you're making money, but you're not. You're losing money. You're going down every year. So I strongly suggest the thing about money, it's going down in value, but gold, it stays with it, but you can't sliver it up, you can't move it, you can't put it in your suitcase and go to another country with it. It's very difficult. So with Bitcoin, it's going to be the next digital gold. You know, we have over $1 trillion in interest being paid every year, just interest on the debt, which is more than we spend on the military. So the military is the #1 thing the government should be doing, but we're spending more on interest because we borrowed so much money. Right now, they're just teetering on the edge, and soon as China, Russia, Other countries are going off the dollar. The dollar reserve currency is keeping us up, but when they go off it, when they start trading oil and interchanging with each other, and also they're coming out with a digital currency themselves. So when that hits, and it's going to happen really soon, the dollar is going to plummet. So I'm begging my friends and loved ones and relatives to buy Bitcoin as much as you can. You can buy a little sliver of it. Just hold it. You know, I would say be as brave as you can and buy as much Bitcoin as you can. Don't be left behind. The future of asset is going to be Bitcoin. So let me know if you have any questions on that.
So what does Bitcoin have to do with real estate then?
Yeah, that's a new exciting thing. There's companies right now that are starting to be able to exchange real estate in form of Bitcoin. There's an escrow company here in Irvine that's doing it. And so I've had clients actually from other countries call me up and ask if they can buy a house with Bitcoin, and I had to say no. But just recently that's changing. So buy real estate, buy investment property, but then move on to Bitcoin.